He didn't just betray her. He waited until her body was torn from childbirth, until she could barely stand, until she came home from the hospital holding their newborn in her arms. Then he emptied their savings and blocked her access to everything. That afternoon, in a quiet suburban home, Elena Pierce tried to buy simple postpartum medicine. Her card was declined, then declined again. In front of strangers, in front of her best friend. Stitches still fresh, baby crying on her shoulder. She stood there humiliated, told there were insufficient funds in accounts she thought she could access. At home, when she finally called the bank, the truth hit harder than any contraction. The accounts had been restructured 6 months ago. Mark had moved their savings into accounts under his name only, listing her as an authorized user he could remove at will. While she focused on her pregnancy, he'd been preparing, planning, positioning himself to take everything. Primary account holder: Mark Hamilton savings transfer, $148,700 to external account investment transfer, $62,000 to external account authorized user, Elena Pierce. Access revoked. While she rocked their newborn alone, he was pouring champagne in another woman's apartment, laughing, telling her, "She can't touch $1. I made sure months ago. She's trapped." But what he didn't know was this. 3 weeks earlier, before Elena went into labor, a letter had arrived from her late father's attorney. She'd been too overwhelmed with final pregnancy appointments to open it. Inside that envelope was paperwork for a trust that had been maturing for over a year. A trust her father established before his death, with one instruction: don't tell her until she truly needs it. Her father had left her $150 million. This is not just a story about a husband's cruelty. It's about what happens when the woman you try to destroy discovers she was never as powerless as you believed, and uses every legal tool available to dismantle your life piece by piece. Dear viewers, thank you for being here. If you watch without subscribing, it's like letting Elena's voice disappear back into silence. When you click that button, you stand with every mother abandoned at her weakest moment, and every quiet soul who chose justice over revenge. Please, subscribe now, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Elena Pierce, 31, stood in the middle of the nursery, breathing hard, one hand pressed against her aching back, the other clutching a tiny blue onesie, as if it were the only thing holding her together. The house was quiet, too quiet, and the silence felt heavy, like something inside these walls was hiding a truth she couldn't yet see. She blinked fast, calming her breath, forcing herself to slow down. This was supposed to be the happiest moment of her life, the final days before meeting her daughter. A home built with love, at least she thought so. The room around her glowed with warm morning light. Soft yellows, baby blues, and handmade decorations filled every corner. But Elena didn't just see the nursery. She saw the long road that brought her here. On the dresser sat a framed photo of Elena and her late father, Jonathan Pierce. In the picture, she was 14 years old, sitting beside him on a wooden dock, holding up a small fish. Her father had his arm around her, protective, proud, gentle. Jonathan had been a quiet man with old money, not flashy, not controlling. He raised Elena alone after her mother passed, teaching her that family was built on loyalty, not wealth. She touched the frame now, her thumb tracing her father's face. Under the photo stood another frame, this one a certificate from her past life. Outstanding Employee Award, Pierce and Monroe Consulting. Before her pregnancy, Elena had been a promising financial analyst, one of the best in her department, the type of person managers fought to keep. She understood accounts, investments, transfers. But when she married Mark Hamilton and found out she was pregnant, she chose to step away from her job. She believed building a home mattered more. She believed Mark would protect her the way her father once did. She sacrificed her career. She trusted Mark to handle their finances while she prepared for motherhood. She ignored the voice in her head that sometimes whispered, "Be careful." Her father's old attorney had called twice in the past month, leaving messages about important estate matters. But at that time, she didn't want to think about inheritances or legal documents. She wanted to focus on love, on family, on the baby coming. She sighed now, letting her hand rest on her belly. Everything she had, her memories, her trust, her future, she had poured into this life with Mark. Just then, footsteps echoed down the hallway. Mark Hamilton, 34, her husband, leaned into the doorway. He was handsome in a clean, polished way, Dark hair, crisp shirt, tired smile. Mark worked in finance, or at least that's what he always said. He often traveled, often worked late, often kept parts of his life tucked behind vague explanations. "Elena," he said lightly, "you're up early." She looked over her shoulder, smiling softly. "Couldn't sleep. She's kicking again." Mark chuckled, walking toward her with slow steps. Anyone watching would think he was the perfect husband, affectionate, caring, present. But his eyes kept drifting toward the dresser where his phone lay. Elena noticed. She had learned to notice the little things. She picked up another tiny onesie, smoothing the fabric, trying to focus on hope rather than worry. Then it happened. A sharp vibration cut through the quiet room. Mark's phone lit up. Elena glanced at the screen before he could reach it. A name flashed, LC. Just 2 letters, but enough to make her stomach tighten. Mark lunged for the phone and snatched it fast, faster than a man with nothing to hide. She froze, her hands tightened around the baby clothes. "Everything okay?" she asked, her voice soft but steady. Mark's smile came too quickly, too forced. "Work messages. Just a client." Elena nodded, but her eyes didn't follow the smile. They followed his hands, hands that shook just slightly as he slipped the phone into his pocket. The tension thickened, but Elena swallowed it down. She wanted peace. She wanted to believe him. She needed calm this close to her due date. Mark stepped forward, kissed her forehead and whispered, "Try to rest. Big day coming soon." Then he walked out of the room. Elena watched him leave, her heartbeat slowing, her breath softening. She placed the onesie back on the crib rail, and the camera tightened on her face as a quiet worry settled in. Just before the scene ended, a faint detail appeared on the dresser, a white envelope with a law firm logo unopened, partially hidden under magazines. A letter from her father's estate attorney, waiting. Elena didn't know it yet, but the first crack in her marriage had already begun to show, and the answers she needed were closer than she realized. Elena Pierce jerked awake to the sound of Mark's car starting in the driveway. She grabbed her phone, 3:47 a.m. Her heart raced as she pushed herself up, one hand steadying her swollen belly. This was the 3rd time this week he'd left in the middle of the night. She forced herself out of bed and walked to the window, moving slowly. Through the curtains, she watched his taillights disappear down the street. Her chest tightened. Something was wrong. She could feel it in her bones. Elena sat back on the edge of the bed, trying to steady her breathing. The baby kicked hard as if sensing her mother's stress. She picked up her phone and noticed something she hadn't seen before. Their joint banking app had logged her out. When she tried to log back in, a message appeared. "Access restrictions have been updated. Contact your bank for details." Her stomach dropped. "Access restrictions?" She tried again. Same message. A cold feeling crept up her spine. This wasn't a technical glitch. Someone had changed something. She wanted to call Mark, but something stopped her. Instead, she opened her email, scrolling back through months of statements she'd been too tired and overwhelmed to check carefully. Then she found it. An email from 6 months ago, back when she was dealing with severe morning sickness, and had asked Mark to handle the banking stuff while she recovered. Subject: Account restructure confirmation. The email detailed how their joint savings and investment accounts had been closed and reopened under new terms. Mark as primary holder, Elena as authorized user with discretionary access. At the time, Mark had told her it was just paperwork to streamline things for tax purposes. She'd been too sick to question it, too trusting to doubt him, too focused on the baby to see the trap being set. Now, staring at those words discretionary access, she understood what they really meant. He could remove her access anytime he wanted. Later that morning, Elena was making tea when a knock at the door broke her thoughts. She opened it to find Masseuse Keene, 62. Their elderly neighbor, a warm-hearted widow who treated Elena like her own daughter. She held a warm casserole dish wrapped in a kitchen towel. "Sweetheart," Masseuse Keene said softly, "I made dinner for you. You need to keep your strength up." Elena blinked back grateful tears. "Thank you. You didn't have to." "Masseuse," Keene hesitated, glancing down the street before lowering her voice. "Honey, I don't want to worry you, especially now. But," she paused, "I've seen him leaving at odd hours. And last week I saw him with a woman. She got into his car and they drove off together." Elena's breath hitched. "Mrs." Keene gently squeezed her arm. I know what I saw. I wouldn't mention it if I wasn't certain. Elena forced a smile, soft, polite, but completely hollow. Maybe it was a coworker or a client. Mrs. Keene didn't look convinced. Just be careful, sweetheart. Sometimes the quiet signs scream the loudest. Her words sank into Elena's mind like a heavy stone. Suddenly, Elena remembered sitting by a campfire with her father at age 17. He had looked her straight in the eyes and said, "Don't ignore small signs, Elena. Men who betray rarely announce themselves. It's the little things, the secretive looks, the sudden distance. Your mother knew something was wrong with her health for months before she told me. She said she ignored the small signs. Don't make that mistake in life, not with your health, not with people you trust." At the time, she brushed it off as one of his overly cautious warnings. Now those words felt like thunder. She pressed a hand to her belly, whispering, "I want to trust him. I need to trust him." But trust was starting to feel like a fragile thread. Later that evening, Elena walked to the desk where Mark kept financial papers. Her hands trembled as she opened the drawer. Inside, she found bank statements, he'd hidden statements for accounts she didn't even know existed. New accounts opened 4 months ago, large transfers out, receipts for expensive restaurants she'd never been to. And at the bottom of the stack, a real estate brochure for luxury condominiums downtown. Her heart pounded. Just as she was about to look closer, her phone buzzed with a text. "Mark, working late again. Don't wait up. Love you." The words felt empty. She looked back at the papers in her hands, and for the first time, she let herself think the thought she'd been avoiding. He's planning to leave me. As Elena gathered the papers to put them back, one more document slipped out, a printed email exchange between Mark and someone named L. Carter. The subject line made her blood run cold. Timeline for transition after baby arrives. Her entire body went numb. And the next time Mark's timeline would matter most was during the moment Elena needed him desperately inside the delivery room. Elena Pierce, 31, screamed as another contraction tore through her body. Her hands squeezed the metal rail of the hospital bed so hard her knuckles turned white. Sweat rolled down her forehead. The monitors beeped sharply around her, each sound echoing her fear and exhaustion. Her breath shook, her body trembled. The room was bright, cold, too clean, and the pain made everything blur. Beside her stood Mark Hamilton, 34, her husband. His body looked present, but his mind didn't. While Elena cried out, Mark's eyes flicked down to his phone every few seconds, the screen lighting up his face. "Mark, please," Elena gasped, her voice cracking. "I need you." He reached out with one hand and placed a palm on her shoulder, forcing a comforting smile. "I'm here. I'm right here," he said. But his other hand held the phone slightly behind his leg, tilted so she couldn't see the screen. The nurse, Karen Miller, 46, stepped closer to the bed. She was the kind of nurse who had worked deliveries for over 20 years. Calm, experienced, gentle, but also observant. She'd seen every kind of partner in delivery rooms, and something about Mark's behavior made her professional instincts sharpen. "You're doing so well, Elena," Nurse Karen said, adjusting Elena's oxygen tube. "Just breathe with me, slowly. In and out." Elena tried, but the contraction hit hard and fast, and she cried out again. "Mark," she called, desperately searching for his eyes. But Mark wasn't looking at her. His phone buzzed again. A small vibration, but sharp enough to cut through the air like a warning. Elena felt it. Not even the pain could blind her to how distant he seemed. Her mind flashed back for a moment, even in the middle of agony. Her father, Jonathan Pierce, speaking to her at age 20, right before she left for her first serious job. "Sweetheart, when life pushes you to your limits, look at the people standing beside you. That's when their truth shows. Pressure doesn't build character, it reveals it." Those words felt heavy now. Too heavy. Her best friend, Sophia Bennett, 30, rushed into the room, wearing a visitor badge around her neck. Sophia had been waiting in the hallway, pacing anxiously since Elena first arrived at the hospital hours ago. Her heart dropped when she saw the sweat on Elena's face and the tension in her shaking hands. "Elena, I'm here," Sophia whispered, taking her other hand. Elena's tears spilled over, tears of pain but also fear. "Don't leave me," she begged. Sophia shook her head firmly. "I'm not going anywhere." Then Mark's phone buzzed again, more urgent this time. He pulled it out without thinking, his thumb hovering over the screen. Elena, panting heavily, whispered through tears, "Mark, can you please just put it away? Just for now?" Mark's jaw tightened slightly, a flicker of annoyance he tried to hide. "It's work, Elena. There's an urgent situation. I'll step out for 2 minutes. 2 minutes. That's it." Before she could protest, before she could beg him to stay, he muttered, "I need to make a call. I'll be right outside." And he left. The door clicked shut behind him. Elena's sob caught in her throat. Sophia squeezed her hand tighter, fury flashing across her face. Nurse Karen made no comment, but her pen moved deliberately across the medical chart. Partner left room during active labor. Patient visibly distressed. That note would matter later. Much later. And now the camera follows Mark outside the delivery room. He doesn't stop at the waiting area. He walks past other families, past the nurse's station, toward a quiet corner near the vending machines. He pulls out his phone with shaking hands, not from worry about Elena, but from anticipation. On the screen is a message from Lila Carter, 29. "Is it done yet? You promised you'd take care of everything today." Mark's fingers flew across the screen. "She's in labor now. Give me 2 hours. I'm finalizing the last transfer tonight. Tomorrow morning, you'll have full access to the downtown account." He hit send, then opened his banking app, the one Elena no longer had access to. He navigated to their savings account and initiated the last major transfer. $62,000 to an external account under Lila's name. Processing. Please confirm. He confirmed. Transfer scheduled for completion. Tonight, 11:47 p.m. Mark exhaled slowly, slipping the phone back into his pocket just as a doctor walked past. He forced his face into an expression of concern and stress, the mask of a worried husband. Then he walked slowly back toward the delivery room. Back inside the room, Elena groaned loudly, her body shaking, the pain overwhelming. Nurse Karen checked her dilation. "Almost there, Elena. You're almost there. You're so strong." Sophia squeezed Elena's hand, whispering encouragement through her own tears. "You can do this. I'm right here. You're not alone." Elena whispered, voice weak and broken. "Where is he?" Sophia hesitated. She didn't want to answer. Nurse Karen didn't want to answer either. The silence said everything. Minutes later, Elena screamed one last time, and suddenly, the sound of a baby's cry filled the room. A tiny, fragile wail that made the entire world pause. Elena sobbed, overwhelmed by the sound of her daughter's first breath. Nurse Karen carefully laid the baby girl on Elena's chest, her tiny body warm and trembling. The moment should have been warm, magical, unforgettable. But when Mark finally stepped back inside, his face was blank. He stared at the baby on Elena's chest, and there was no smile. No tears, no warmth, just a stiff, distracted stare. Eyes empty, unfocused, distant. He glanced at his watch. Sophia noticed. Her jaw clenched. Nurse Karen noticed too. She wrote quietly in the file, "Father's affect, flat, disengaged. Minimal bonding observed." The scene slows as Elena kisses her daughter's forehead, tears falling onto the newborn's skin. She looked up at Mark, searching desperately for love in his face. She found nothing. Her heart cracked quietly. As the camera zooms in on Mark's phone in his pocket, the screen lights up again, with a new notification visible through the fabric. Transfer complete. $62,000. New account balance. $0. The phone vibrates one more time. "Lila. Got it. You're free now." Mark's lips curled into the faintest smile, one Elena couldn't see, but the camera caught it. The next morning, Elena would learn that some pains don't end in the delivery room. They follow you home, wait until you're weakest, and strike when you least expect it. 2 days after giving birth, Elena Pierce stood trembling in the bright fluorescent lights of the small pharmacy, still weak from delivery. Her stitches ached with every movement. Dark circles shadowed her eyes from sleepless nights. She held her newborn daughter close to her chest in a soft carrier, the baby's tiny face peaceful against the storm brewing around them. She just needed one thing, her prescribed postpartum pain medication and antibiotics to prevent infection. Simple. Necessary. Doctor ordered. She reached into her purse with shaking fingers, gripping the debit card she'd used countless times before her card, linked to what used to be their joint account. The pharmacy clerk, Mason Reed, 28, a polite young man with tired eyes and a customer service smile, scanned the medications. "That'll be $43.18. he said gently. Elena nodded and slid her card through the machine. Beep. Transaction declined. Her heart stopped for a second. She tried to steady her voice. Can you try it again? Maybe the machine. Of course. Mason swiped it a second time. Beep. Declined. Her hands started to tremble. The room felt smaller. Too bright, too loud. Behind her stood Sophia Bennett, 30, Elena's closest friend. Sophia had been the one to drive her home from the hospital, helping with the baby, making sure Elena rested. She stepped closer now, noticing the way Elena's shoulders curled inward, the way her breathing quickened. Elena, Sophia whispered. What's wrong? Elena swallowed hard, her throat tightening. I don't know. This card has always worked. Let me try one more time. She slid the card a third time, hands visibly shaking now. Beep. Declined. The sound felt like a blow to her chest. Mason shifted nervously, lowering his voice. I'm really sorry, ma'am, but the system is saying insufficient funds. Sometimes banks freeze cards if there's been unusual activity or if insufficient funds. Elena repeated, her voice barely a whisper. The words didn't make sense. They had savings, they had money. She'd checked the balance 2 weeks ago. There had been over $200,000. Her mind scrambled backward, searching for an explanation, a reason, anything that would make this moment make sense. 5 months pregnant, sitting at the kitchen table, reviewing finances with Mark. She'd been tired, nauseous, struggling to focus. Mark had said, "Don't worry about the accounts anymore. I restructured everything to make taxes easier. You're listed as an authorized user. Now it's simpler for you. Less paperwork. You can still access everything when you need it." She'd trusted him. She'd signed where he told her to sign. She'd believed him when he said, "I'm taking care of us." But now, standing in this pharmacy, the words authorized user took on a horrifying new meaning. He could revoke my access anytime he wanted. Her chest tightened. Her legs weakened. "Elena," Sophia said softly, catching her elbow as she swayed. "You're shaking. Here, let me pay for it. We'll figure this out at home." The baby began to cry softly, sensing her mother's fear. The tiny sound shattered Elena's last sense of calm. Her card had never failed before. Not once, not ever. She had always been careful with money. Her background in financial analysis had taught her that, unless something was very, very wrong, unless Mark had done something. Her breath grew shallow. "Sophia, I think something's wrong," she whispered, her voice breaking. Sophia placed a steady hand on her shoulder, her own face tight with concern. "Let me pay for this right now. Then we're going straight home, and you're checking your accounts. All of them." Elena nodded weakly, tears threatening to spill. Mason quietly accepted Sophia's card, processed the payment, and handed over the medications in a small white bag. His expression was sympathetic but professionally neutral. He'd seen financial troubles play out in this pharmacy before. As they walked toward the exit, Elena clutched her baby tighter, fear crawling up her spine like ice water. Mark had been distant. He'd left during labor. He'd been texting someone constantly. And now this. No, he wouldn't. He couldn't. But deep down, a voice she'd been ignoring for weeks whispered, yes, he would. As they stepped outside into the harsh afternoon sunlight, Elena's phone buzzed. A text from the bank. Account alert. Your authorized user access has been revoked as of 12:01 a.m. today. For questions, contact the primary account holder. Elena stopped walking. Sophia read the message over her shoulder and gasped. He locked you out? Sophia whispered, horrified. Elena, he locked you out. Elena stared at the message, the words blurring through tears. Primary account holder, Mark. He planned this. When Elena finally opened her laptop at home and saw the full truth, she would discover that betrayal wasn't just about stolen money. It was about stolen futures, broken promises, and a plan set in motion long before she ever went into labor. Elena burst through the front door of her home, Sophia right behind her. The baby cried loudly in the carrier, the sound sharp and desperate. Elena's entire body shook not just from physical exhaustion, but from the terrible knowing that was building in her chest. Sit down, Sophia urged, guiding her to the couch. Open the banking app now. We need to see exactly what happened. Elena's hands trembled so badly she could barely unlock her phone. Her heart pounded. The baby whimpered against her chest, and Elena kissed her tiny forehead with cold lips before forcing herself to focus. She opened the banking app. The screen loaded, and her world shattered completely. Primary savings account, $0 investment account, $0 emergency fund, $0. Elena stared, not breathing, not blinking. Her thumb scrolled down through the transaction history with mechanical precision, the training from her old analyst job kicking in even through shock. What she found made her stomach drop. 6 days ago, transferred to external account L. Carter $148,700 3 days ago. Transferred to external account L. $62,000 7. Yesterday, 11:47 p.m., while she was in the hospital recovering. Account restructure. Primary holder retained all assets today, 12:01 a.m. Authorized user E. Access revoked. Everything inside Elena went silent. Her ears rang. Her chest felt like it was caving in. Her mouth went completely dry. Sophia gasped, covering her mouth with both hands. Oh my God, Elena, this can't be real. This can't. Elena's breath came in shaky, shallow bursts. Over $200,000, she whispered. Everything we saved. Everything from my old job, from his bonuses, from our wedding gifts. Everything. The baby cried harder, picking up on her mother's anguish. Elena tried to call Mark. Ring. Call forwarded to voicemail. She tried again. Ring. Voicemail. Again, voicemail. Every single attempt went straight to voicemail, which meant he'd either blocked her number or turned off his phone entirely. He won't even answer, Elena said, her voice breaking on every word. He emptied everything and won't even answer my calls. Sophia knelt beside her, rubbing her arm desperately. Maybe there's been a mistake. Maybe the bank made an error. Maybe, but Sophia's voice trailed off when she saw Elena click on something else. A folder in the app labeled Account Correspondence. Inside were emails Elena had never seen before, emails sent to Mark's personal address, not their shared one. The subject lines told the whole story. Account restructure complete March 15. Primary holder change confirmation March 20. Authorized user agreement updated March 22. March. He'd started this in March, 2 months before she gave birth. This wasn't impulsive. This was methodical, planned, calculated. Elena leaned her head back against the couch, staring blankly at the ceiling, her baby crying softly against her chest. Memories flooded in moments she hadn't wanted to see clearly until now. Mark in March saying casually over breakfast, "Hey, I need you to sign some banking updates. Just routine stuff for tax season." She'd been exhausted from morning sickness, barely able to keep food down. She'd signed without reading carefully. Another memory, Mark in April. "I'm handling all the finances now, okay? You just focus on staying healthy. That's your only job." It had sounded loving at the time, protective. Now it sounded like a trap snapping shut. Her father's voice echoed again. "Elena, never, and I mean never, give someone complete control of your financial security. Not because you don't trust them, but because power changes people. Always keep your own accounts. Always know where your money is." She'd thought her father was being paranoid, old-fashioned, overly protective. Now she understood he'd been trying to save her from exactly this moment. Elena held her baby tighter, tears falling silently onto the infant's blanket. "He left me with nothing," she whispered. "Not even enough to buy the medicine I needed after giving birth to his child." Sophia pressed her forehead against Elena's shoulder, her own voice thick with fury and grief. "You're not alone. We'll fight this. I promise you, we will fight this." But Elena felt something else rising inside her. Not anger yet, not rage, just a deep, cold understanding. He never planned to stay. This was always his endgame. A modern downtown apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows and expensive furniture Elena had never seen before. Mark Hamilton, 34, stood by the window in fresh clothes, his hair still wet from a shower. He looked relaxed, rested, unburdened. Lila Carter, 29, emerged from the bedroom wearing one of his shirts. She was attractive, confident, and completely unaware of the devastation her relationship had caused. She wrapped her arms around Mark from behind. "So it's really done?" she asked, her voice light and excited. "She can't access anything?" Mark smiled, not a guilty smile, not a conflicted smile, a satisfied smile. "It's done. She's got nothing. No access, no cards, no way to fight back. He turned to face Lila. I made sure of it months ago. She signed everything without even reading it. Lila laughed softly. What's she going to do? She just had a baby. She hasn't worked in months. She's completely dependent. Mark poured 2 glasses of wine, handing one to Lila. Exactly. By the time she figures out how to even hire a lawyer, we'll be long gone. I already put the deposit down on the condo in Miami. He raised his glass. To freedom. Lila clinked her glass against his. To us. Neither of them noticed the neighbor across the hall, an older woman who'd seen Lila coming and going for months, who'd made careful note of dates and times, who'd taken photos of Mark's car, parked overnight in the building's garage. Evidence was already building. Mark just didn't know it yet. Back at Elena's home, Sophia was helping her calm the baby when Elena's phone buzzed again. Not a text from Mark. A notification from the post office. Certified mail delivery attempted signature required. Sender, Huang and Associates, Estate Law. Elena's breath caught. What is it? Sophia asked. Elena stared at the notification. It's from my father's attorney. He's been trying to reach me for weeks. Her hands trembled as she stood, sudden realization flooding through her. Sophia, she whispered. My father, before he died. He told me he'd made arrangements. I never knew what he meant. Sophia's eyes widened. You need to get that letter. Now. Elena looked down at her sleeping daughter, then back at her phone. Whatever was in that envelope might be the only lifeline she had left. By the next morning, Elena would discover that her father's love had reached across death itself, and the betrayal Mark thought would destroy her would become the catalyst for something he never saw coming. The morning after the pharmacy incident, Elena sat on her couch, staring at a white envelope that had been sitting on her dresser for weeks, the one with the law firm logo she'd been too exhausted and overwhelmed to open. Estate of Jonathan Pierce Huang and Associates. Her father's name made her throat tighten every time she looked at it. She'd received it 3 weeks ago, right before her final prenatal appointments. She'd thought, I'll open it after the baby comes, when I have time to deal with estate paperwork. Now, with $0 in her accounts and no way to survive, she had no choice. But before she could open it, her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. Hello? Miss Pierce. This is Thomas Gray from Priority Courier Services. We have an urgent certified delivery from Huang and Associates that requires your signature. We've attempted delivery 3 times over the past month. Are you available today? Elena's heart raced. Another letter? Yes. Come now, please. 20 minutes later, Courier Thomas Gray, 42, stood on her porch with a second, thicker envelope, this one marked in red. Urgent. Time-sensitive estate matter. Immediate action required. Ma'am, the sender indicated this was critical. I apologize for the multiple attempts our records show you weren't available for the previous deliveries. Elena's hands trembled as she signed. She'd been at doctor's appointments, then in the hospital, then too devastated to answer the door. She took the heavy envelope. Thomas nodded respectfully and left. Sophia appeared beside her. Another letter? 2 letters. Elena whispered, holding both envelopes. One I've been too scared to open, and one that just arrived. Sophia guided her back inside. Open them both. Now. Elena sat down, her baby sleeping peacefully in the carrier beside her. She opened the first envelope, the one that had been waiting on her dresser. Inside was a handwritten letter from her father. Then she opened the second envelope, the urgent one. Inside was a typed letter from Daniel Huang, her father's attorney, explaining he'd been trying to reach her for weeks. Miss Pierce, the letter began. I've been monitoring your situation as your father instructed. I have urgent information about your father's estate that you need to know immediately. Please call me the moment you receive this. Elena sat on the couch, cradling her daughter with one arm, while Sophia sat close beside her. Her fingers traced the seal, her father's initials embossed in gold. A memory rose, so vivid it felt like he was in the room. Jonathan Pierce in the hospital, 3 days before he passed, his hand gripping hers weakly. Elena, listen carefully. I've set up protections for you. Dad, don't talk like that. You're going to be fine. Stop. Listen. His voice was firm despite his weakness. I've worked with Daniel Huang. He's trustworthy. If anything ever happens, if life ever corners you, there's a safety net. You won't see it until you need it, but it's there. She'd been so focused on denial, on hope, on refusing to accept he was dying, that she'd barely processed his words. "I don't want your money, Dad. I just want you." He'd smiled sadly. "I know, sweetheart. But one day you might need it more than you can imagine. And when that day comes, you'll know I'm still protecting you." The memory made tears stream down Elena's face now. "He knew," she whispered. "Somehow he knew I'd need help." With shaking hands, she opened the envelope. Inside were multiple documents. A letter in her father's handwriting, legal papers with the law firm's letterhead, account access codes, a business card for Daniel Huang. She unfolded her father's letter first. "My dearest Elena, if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and something has gone terribly wrong in your life. I pray I'm mistaken, but a father's instinct is rarely wrong. When your mother died, I promised her I'd always protect you even after I was gone. So I've established a trust in your name, managed by Daniel Huang, a man I trust with my life. The funds have been invested conservatively and have been growing since my death. By the time you receive this, they should have matured significantly. I've instructed Daniel to watch over you quietly. If he sends this letter, it means he believes you're in danger or crisis. Whatever you're facing, whoever hurt you, remember, you are my daughter. You are brilliant, strong, and capable, and you are not alone. Use these resources to rebuild, to protect yourself, to fight back if necessary. I love you forever, Dad." Elena's hands shook so violently she nearly dropped the letter. Sophia read over her shoulder, tears streaming down her own face. "Elena, call the lawyer, now." With trembling fingers, Elena dialed the number on Daniel Huang's card. The phone rang twice. "Huang and Associates, Daniel Huang speaking." "Mr. Huang," Elena's voice cracked. "This is Elena Pierce. I just received your letter." There was a pause, then genuine warmth and relief entered his voice. "Miss Pierce, thank God. I've been monitoring your situation as your father instructed. I'm so sorry for what you're going through." His voice became gentle but professional. "Are you somewhere private where we can talk?" "Yes." "Good. What I'm about to tell you will be overwhelming, but I need you to stay calm." He paused. "Your father established an irrevocable trust in your name 14 months ago. The assets were invested in a diversified portfolio of stocks, bonds, and real estate holdings." Elena's heart pounded. "How much?" "The trust has matured to a current value of $148 million. The world stopped. Sophia's hand flew to her mouth, muffling a gasp. Elena couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, couldn't process. Daniel continued gently. "Additionally, there's a separate liquid emergency fund of $2 million available for immediate access should you need it. Your father wanted to ensure that if you ever faced a crisis, you'd have resources immediately available." 148. Elena couldn't finish the sentence. $1 million. "Yes, ma'am. You are the sole beneficiary. No one else can touch it, not a spouse, not creditors, no one. It's legally protected in your name only." The baby stirred against Elena's chest, letting out a tiny sigh, as if she too sensed the shift in the universe. Elena closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, the tears were gone. What replaced them wasn't joy. It wasn't relief. It was something colder, harder. Clarity. Her father hadn't just left her money, he'd left her power. The power to fight back, the power to survive, the power to make sure Mark never got away with what he'd done. "Mr. Huang," Elena said, her voice steady now, "I need to meet with you immediately. And I need a lawyer who specializes in financial fraud and divorce. I've already taken the liberty of reaching out to someone. Her name is Miriam Cole. She's one of the best family law attorneys in the state, and she's handled cases exactly like yours. How soon can we meet? I can have everything arranged for tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., and Miss Pierce," his voice softened, "your father would be very proud of you right now." Fresh tears threatened, but Elena swallowed them down. "Thank you, Mr. Huang." She ended the call and sat in silence. Sophia threw her arms around her, crying openly now. "Elena, oh my God, you're going to be okay. You're going to be more than okay." But Elena wasn't thinking about being okay. She was thinking about justice. As Sophia hugged her, Elena's gaze drifted to the window, and her breath caught. Standing across the street by the mailbox was Mrs. Keene, 62, their elderly neighbor. Mrs. Keene was staring at Elena's house with a worried, conflicted expression, clutching what looked like a small notebook. When she noticed Elena looking, she hesitated, then slowly lifted her hand in a small wave. She'd seen something. Something important. And tomorrow, Elena would find out exactly what it was. By morning, Elena would walk into that law office not as a victim, but as a woman armed with evidence, resources, and a plan Mark Hamilton never saw coming. Elena Pierce pushed through the glass doors of Huang and Associates at exactly 9 a.m., her newborn strapped securely in a carrier against her chest. She wore clean clothes, her hair was pulled back, and despite the exhaustion shadowing her eyes, she walked with purpose. She didn't look broken anymore. She looked ready. The receptionist directed her to a large conference room where 3 people waited. Daniel Huang, 45, the estate attorney, stood when she entered. Gray suit, kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, the bearing of someone who'd spent decades protecting people's legacies. Beside him sat Miriam Cole, 38, sharp-featured with intelligent eyes and an air of absolute confidence. She wore a tailored black suit and held a leather portfolio. Her reputation in family law was formidable. She didn't just win cases, she dismantled abusive spouses. The third person surprised Elena. Victor Greer, 52, stood near the window, tall, calm, with the observant stillness of someone trained in investigation. Former police detective, now a private investigator. Miss Pierce, Daniel said warmly. Please sit. This is Miriam Cole, and this is Victor Greer. Elena lowered herself into the chair carefully, adjusting her sleeping baby. Miriam spoke first, her voice gentle but direct. Elena, I've reviewed the initial information Daniel provided. What your husband did isn't just morally reprehensible, it's legally actionable. We're looking at financial abuse, fraudulent transfer of marital assets, and potentially even criminal charges. Elena nodded, her jaw set. Tell me what we need to do. Victor stepped forward. Your father hired me 3 years ago not to spy on you, but to be available if you ever needed help. When he became ill, he asked me to keep a discreet watch, just in case. Elena's eyes widened. You've been watching? From a distance, your father was concerned about Mark from the beginning. He never said why, just that something felt off. Victor opened a thick folder and spread its contents across the conference table. When Daniel informed me about your situation 2 days ago, I accelerated my investigation. The evidence. First, surveillance photos of Mark entering and leaving a downtown apartment building. The timestamp showed overnight stays going back 4 months. Second, financial records Victor had obtained through legal channels showing Mark opening new accounts, transferring money systematically over the past 8 weeks. Third, screenshots of text messages between Mark and Lila Carter, obtained from Lila's cloud backup after Victor identified her. The messages were damning. Once the baby's born, I'm done. She'll be too overwhelmed to fight. Moved another $60,000 today. She hasn't noticed. After delivery, I'll block everything. Give it 2 weeks, then we're gone. Fourth, photos of Mark and Lila at a real estate office 1 week before Elena went into labor, signing paperwork for a property in Miami. Fifth, bank statements showing Mark had been siphoning money from their accounts in small increments for 6 months before making the large transfers. Each piece of evidence was another knife in Elena's heart, but also another weapon in her arsenal. Miriam watched Elena's face carefully. Are you all right? Elena's voice was steady. Keep going. Most damaging. Victor slid across a printed record of Mark's phone activity during Elena's labor. He made 7 calls to Lila Carter during the hours you were in active labor. The longest was 14 minutes. He was coordinating the final transfers while you were giving birth to his child. The room fell silent. Elena looked down at her sleeping daughter, then back up at the evidence. What else? Daniel pulled out another document. This morning, I filed a motion to freeze all accounts in Mark's name pending investigation. The judge granted it based on the evidence of fraudulent asset transfer. It's already done? Elena's eyes widened. As of 8 a.m. this morning, Miriam confirmed. He can't access any accounts. He can't transfer anything else. He can't withdraw cash. Everything is locked, Victor added. I also contacted your neighbor, Mrs. Keene. She's agreed to provide a witness statement. She documented dates and times of Mark's suspicious behavior, including seeing him with another woman multiple times. Elena took a shaky breath. So what happens now? Miriam leaned forward. Now, we file for divorce on grounds of financial abandonment and fraud. Simultaneously, We file criminal complaints for theft of marital assets, and we ensure that every penny he stole gets returned with penalties. Daniel added, the trust your father left you is completely protected. Mark can't touch it, can't claim it in divorce proceedings. It's yours alone. Elena closed her eyes briefly, gathering herself. When she opened them, her voice was ice. Do it. File everything. As Miriam began organizing the legal filings, Victor's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then looked up sharply. Mark just tried to withdraw cash from an ATM. Everyone turned to him. The transaction was declined. And according to the bank's security protocols, Victor's expression was grim. He's now locked out of the building's ATM vestibule. Bank security has been notified. Miriam smiled coldly. It's starting. Elena stared at the evidence spread across the table. Evidence of betrayal, but also evidence of her father's love, reaching across death to save her. Good, she whispered. Within hours, Mark would discover that the life he'd stolen wasn't his to take, and the woman he'd tried to destroy had become the architect of his downfall. That same afternoon, Mark Hamilton stood inside the marble lobby of First National Bank, his phone pressed against his ear, his voice rising with each word. What do you mean my accounts are frozen? I'm the primary account holder. The bank representative on the other end remained professionally calm. Sir, there's a court order. All accounts under your name have been flagged pending investigation of fraudulent activity. Fraudulent? This is insane. My wife did this, didn't she? She can't do this. She doesn't have access anymore. Sir, I can't discuss the details over the phone. You'll need to come to the branch and speak with our fraud investigation department. I'm at the branch, Mark shouted, drawing stares from other customers. Then please proceed to the third-floor offices. Someone will meet with you. The line went dead. Mark's hands shook with rage as he jammed his phone into his pocket and stormed toward the elevators. Richard Hale, 50, the bank manager, sat behind his desk reviewing documents when Mark was escorted in by security. Richard's expression was professionally neutral, but his eyes were cold. Mr. Hamilton, please sit. I don't want to sit. I want to know why I can't access my own money. Richard gestured to the chair more firmly. Sit. Down. Something in his tone made Mark comply. Richard slid a document across the desk. This is a court order issued this morning at 8 a.m. It authorizes the immediate freeze of all accounts under your name, pending investigation of fraudulent transfer of marital assets. Mark's face went white. Elena did this. Mrs. Hamilton filed a legal complaint with supporting evidence. The judge reviewed the evidence and granted the freeze. What evidence? She doesn't have anything. Richard opened a folder and began reading aloud. Unauthorized transfer of $148,700 from a joint marital account to a third party. Unauthorized transfer of $62,000 from a joint marital account to the same third party. Removal of spouse's access to accounts without consent during a vulnerable period. Evidence of systematic financial planning to defraud spouse of marital assets. Each word hit Mark like a physical blow. You restructured the accounts specifically to remove your wife's access, Richard continued coldly. Then you drained them while she was in the hospital giving birth. That's not a financial dispute, Mr. Hamilton. That's theft. Mark opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Richard continued. The bank's compliance department has also been subpoenaed. We've turned over all records of your transactions from the past year. Additionally, he slid another paper forward. There's a civil lawsuit being filed against you for return of all assets plus damages. This is impossible, Mark whispered. She has nothing. No money, no lawyer, no way to… Actually, Richard interrupted. Mrs. Hamilton retained Miriam Cole of Cole & Partners, one of the best family law attorneys in the state. Her retainer alone is typically $50,000. He paused meaningfully. Your wife seems to have found funding somewhere. Mark's mind raced. How? Where did she get money for a lawyer like that? You're done here, Mr. Hamilton, Richard said, standing. Security will escort you out. Mark stood mechanically, his legs weak. As security guided him toward the elevator, his phone buzzed. A text from Lila. What the fuck is going on? I just tried to use the card you gave me and it was declined. All of them were declined. You said this money was yours. Then another. The real estate agent called. The deposit for the Miami condo bounced. They're canceling the contract. What did you do? Then another. Are you even going to answer me? Did you lie about everything? Mark's hands trembled as the elevator descended. Everything was unraveling. He'd been so certain Elena would be too weak, too overwhelmed, too dependent to fight back. He'd miscalculated catastrophically. Mark sat across from Lila Carter at a corner table, trying to salvage the situation. It's just temporary, he insisted, his voice low and urgent. My wife is trying to cause problems, but I'll get it sorted out. Lila's arms were crossed, her expression skeptical. Temporary? Mark, everything is frozen. You told me she was helpless. You told me she had nothing. She doesn't. I don't know how she afforded a lawyer, but maybe she's not as stupid as you thought, Lila snapped. The waiter approached. Whenever you're ready for the check, sir. Mark nodded, distracted, and handed over his credit card without thinking, one of the new cards he'd opened just for himself and Lila. The waiter returned 2 minutes later, his expression apologetic. I'm sorry, sir, but this card was declined. Mark's stomach dropped. That's impossible. Try it again. The waiter tried again. Declined. Mark pulled out a second card. Same result. A third card. Declined. Lila's eyes widened. Are you serious right now? Humiliation burned Mark's face as other diners began to notice the commotion. He grabbed his phone, checking his accounts frantically. Every single one showed the same message. Account frozen. Court order. Lila stood abruptly. I'm not dealing with this. Lila, wait. No, you lied to me. You said she was nothing. You said this was easy. She grabbed her purse. Figure out your mess. I'm done. She walked out. Mark sat alone at the table, surrounded by the wreckage of his own making. The waiter cleared his throat awkwardly. Sir? About the bill. Just give me a second. Mark's phone buzzed with a new notification. Court summons. You are required to appear for divorce proceedings. Failure to appear will result in default judgment. His hands went numb. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. As Mark finally stood to leave after Sophia had to come pay his restaurant bill, following a humiliating call, 2 police officers entered the restaurant. They approached his table directly. Mark Hamilton? His blood ran cold. Yes? We need you to come with us for questioning regarding allegations of financial fraud and theft of marital assets. The entire restaurant fell silent. Every eye turned toward him. Mark's face drained of all color. You can't be serious. The officer's expression was stone. We're very serious, sir. You can come voluntarily, or we can do this differently. Mark's world collapsed around him. And the next time Mark faced Elena, it wouldn't be in their home or a bank. It would be in a courtroom packed with witnesses, with evidence, and with a judge who had zero tolerance for men who abandoned their wives at their weakest moment. 1 week later, the courthouse was packed. Courtroom 7, Family Law Division. Mark Hamilton sat at the defendant's table in handcuffs, flanked by a public defender he'd been assigned after his assets were frozen. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his hair uncombed, his eyes bloodshot. The man who'd once exuded confidence now looked hollowed out. The gallery was full. Mrs. Keene, 62, sat in the front row, her small notebook clutched in her hands, the same notebook where she'd documented every suspicious thing she'd witnessed over the past months. Sophia Bennett, 30, sat beside her, arms crossed, jaw set, radiating protective fury. Even Lila Carter, 29, was there subpoenaed as a witness. She sat in the back, arms crossed, her expression a mixture of anger and humiliation. She'd already been interviewed by investigators and had realized too late that Mark had used her as much as he'd used Elena. At the front stood Judge Rafael Ramirez, 58, known for his no-nonsense approach to financial abuse cases. He'd seen too many vulnerable spouses destroyed by calculated cruelty. Elena Pierce entered last. She walked in calmly, her 3-week-old daughter sleeping peacefully against her chest in a carrier. She wore simple but professional clothing. Her face was composed, her shoulders straight. She sat beside her attorneys, Daniel Huang and Miriam Cole, and for the first time since Mark had seen her at the hospital, their eyes met. His were pleading, desperate. Hers were ice. Judge Ramirez opened the proceedings. We're here for the dissolution of marriage between Elena Pierce and Mark Hamilton, with concurrent civil and criminal complaints regarding financial fraud and theft of marital assets. He looked directly at Mark. Mr. Hamilton, You stand accused of systematically defrauding your wife of over $200,000 in marital assets while she was pregnant and immediately following childbirth. How do you plead? Mark's public defender stood. Your Honor, my client pleads not guilty. He maintains that, save it, Judge Ramirez interrupted. I've reviewed the evidence submitted. Let's proceed. The evidence phase. Miriam Cole stood, commanding the room. Your Honor, we'll demonstrate that Mr. Hamilton's actions were not impulsive but calculated a months-long scheme to systematically steal marital assets and abandon his wife and newborn child. She approached the evidence table, where everything was laid out on display boards for the court to see. First, bank statements projected onto screens, showing the unauthorized transfers. $148,700 transferred to Lila Carter on May 3rd, 4 days before Mrs. Hamilton went into labor. $62,000 transferred to Lila Carter on May 6th, the day before Mrs. Hamilton gave birth. Complete removal of Mrs. Hamilton's account access on May 7th, while she was in the hospital recovering from childbirth. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Second, text message screenshots between Mark and Lila, displayed for everyone to see. Once the baby's born, I'm done. She'll be too overwhelmed to fight. She doesn't even check the accounts anymore. This is easy. After delivery, I'm blocking everything. 2 weeks later, we leave. Someone in the gallery whispered, "Oh my God." Third, Victor Greer's surveillance photos showing Mark at the apartment building, at restaurants with Lila, at the real estate office signing papers for a Miami condo. Fourth, phone records from the hospital showing Mark made 7 calls to Lila during Elena's labor, including one 14-minute call made while Elena was in active labor. The courtroom fell deadly silent. Judge Ramirez's expression darkened. Fifth, Mrs. Keene was called to the stand. She testified in a clear, steady voice. I saw Mr. Hamilton with another woman on multiple occasions. I documented the dates and times. I saw him loading boxes into her car. I saw him leave at odd hours. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't realize how bad it was until Elena came home from the hospital, and I saw how devastated she was. Finally, the hospital records were submitted, including Nurse Karen's notes. Father absent during active labor. Left room during peak contractions. Minimal engagement with infant after birth. Affect, flat, disengaged. The weight of the evidence was crushing, undeniable, irrefutable. Mark suddenly stood, knocking his chair back. This is insane, he shouted. Yes, I moved money. Yes, I was seeing someone else. But Elena, she's making this sound like I'm some kind of monster. We were unhappy. I was going to leave anyway. He stopped, realizing what he just admitted. His public defender grabbed his arm, trying to get him to sit down and stop talking, but Mark jerked away. She's twisting everything, he yelled, pointing at Elena. She had access to the accounts. She could have checked. She could have. Mr. Hamilton, Judge Ramirez's voice cut through like steel. You removed her access while she was in a hospital bed. You transferred marital assets to your mistress. You blocked your wife's credit cards when she was recovering from childbirth. You planned this for months. Mark's face crumpled. Elena, please tell them I'm not. Sit down. The judge's voice was absolute. Security guards moved closer. Mark collapsed into his chair, his head in his hands. Judge Ramirez reviewed the documents one final time, then looked up. I've presided over family law for 23 years. This is among the most egregious cases of financial abuse and calculated cruelty I've encountered. He stamped the first document. The divorce is granted, effective immediately. Full custody of the minor child is awarded to Elena Pierce. He stamped the second document. All marital assets are to be returned to Mrs. Pierce, plus statutory damages for fraud in the amount of $100,000. He stamped the third document. Additionally, I'm recommending criminal charges for theft and financial exploitation of a vulnerable person. Mr. Hamilton, you're remanded to custody pending further proceedings. The gavel came down with finality. Mark screamed as security guards moved toward him. No, you can't do this. Elena, please. Tell them I made a mistake. Please. Elena didn't move, didn't speak, didn't even look at him. Her silence was more devastating than any words could have been. As the guards put Mark in restraints, Lila Carter stood from the back row and walked out without looking back. She wanted nothing to do with the wreckage anymore. As Mark was led toward the holding area, still screaming Elena's name, Judge Ramirez motioned for Elena to approach the bench. Mrs. Pierce, there's one more matter to address. It's come to my attention through your attorney that you've recently come into significant assets from your late father's estate. Elena nodded, her heart pounding. Given the circumstances, and given that Mr. Hamilton attempted to leave you destitute, I'm awarding you exclusive possession of the marital home and all its contents. He has 48 hours to retrieve personal belongings under police escort. After that, he is not to come within 500 feet of you or your daughter. Thank you, Your Honor. As Elena turned to leave the courtroom, she caught one last glimpse of Mark being dragged away, broken and screaming. She felt no joy, no satisfaction, just a quiet, powerful sense of justice. But outside the courtroom, one final confrontation awaited, one that would test whether Elena's strength came from revenge or from something deeper. Elena pushed through the courthouse doors into the bright afternoon sunlight, her baby secure against her chest. She'd expected to feel relief, maybe even triumph. Instead, she felt exhausted, empty, ready to finally move forward. Behind her, she heard rapid footsteps. Elena! Elena! She turned to see Mark breaking away from his police escort in the hallway, desperation written across his face. The guards grabbed him immediately, but he fought against them just long enough to shout, "Please, I'm sorry. I made a terrible mistake. Don't let them take me away from my daughter. Please." The courthouse entrance fell silent as people stopped to watch. Elena stood perfectly still, her hand instinctively protective over her baby's head. Mark's voice cracked, raw and panicked. "I know I hurt you. I know I did everything wrong, but please, Elena, I'm begging you. Don't destroy my whole life. Give me another chance." The guards held him firmly, waiting to see if Elena would respond. Sophia appeared beside Elena, her voice low and urgent. "You don't owe him anything, not even a response." But Elena took a slow breath and stepped closer, close enough that Mark could hear her clearly, but not close enough for him to reach her. Elena looked at the man she'd once loved, really looked at him, at the desperation in his eyes, the tears on his face, the way he was begging for mercy he'd never shown her. She thought of the pharmacy, where she'd been humiliated trying to buy medicine after giving birth to his child. She thought of lying in the delivery room, crying for him, while he stood in the hallway planning their financial ruin. She thought of opening her phone to see $0 while he poured champagne with another woman. She thought of the months he'd spent methodically preparing to abandon her, signing papers, moving money, lying to her face every single day. And then she thought of her father, Jonathan Pierce, 1 week before he died, his hand weak but steady on hers. "Elena, if someone ever betrays you, really betrays you, don't waste energy on revenge. Don't let bitterness poison your heart. You don't fight them to destroy them. You fight them to free yourself." At the time, she hadn't understood. Now, standing in front of Mark, she did. Elena spoke, her voice calm and clear. "Mark." He looked up at her with desperate hope. "You didn't make a mistake," she said softly. "A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is saying something thoughtless. What you did was make choices, deliberate, calculated, planned choices. Elena, I can change. You chose to restructure our accounts while I was sick and vulnerable," she continued, her voice never rising but cutting deeper than shouting ever could. "You chose to steal from me while I was in labor. You chose to remove my access to our money while I was recovering from giving birth to your daughter." Mark's face crumpled, but she didn't stop. "You chose to celebrate with another woman while I cried alone with a newborn, wondering how I'd buy medicine." "I'm sorry." "You're not sorry you did it," Elena said quietly. "You're sorry you got caught. There's a difference." The words hung in the air, absolute and final. Mark's knees nearly buckled. "Please don't walk away from me. I have nothing left." Elena's next words were the coldest she'd ever spoken. "Now you know how I felt." She turned away. "Elena, wait. What about our daughter? Don't I deserve to be part of her life?" Elena stopped and looked back one last time. "That's not for me to decide. That's for a judge to decide based on your choices. If you want to be part of her life, prove you're capable of being a decent human being first. Prove you understand what being a parent actually means." She paused, then added, "But right now, the only thing you deserve is exactly what you're getting, The consequences of your actions. The guards began pulling Mark away as he shouted her name over and over, the sound echoing off the courthouse walls. Elena walked down the steps without looking back. At the bottom of the steps, Daniel Huang, Miriam Cole, and Victor Greer waited. Daniel spoke gently. "How are you holding up?" "I'm okay," Elena said, and surprisingly, she meant it. "I'm actually okay." Miriam handed her a folder. "Everything is finalized. The house is yours. The accounts are unfrozen and returned to you. And here," she pulled out a separate document, "this is the access information for your father's trust. The $2 million emergency fund has been transferred to a new account, in your name only." Elena took the papers with steady hands. Victor added, "I've also arranged for a security system installation at your house and a protective order that's active immediately. He can't come near you or the baby. Thank you. All of you." Elena's voice was thick with gratitude. "I don't know what I would have done without you. Your father made sure you'd never have to find out," Daniel said warmly. As they walked toward the parking lot, Sophia threw an arm around Elena's shoulders. "So what happens now?" Sophia asked. Elena looked down at her sleeping daughter, then up at the blue sky above. "Now?" A small, genuine smile crossed her face for the first time in weeks. "Now I rebuild. For her. For me. For the future Dad wanted me to have." As Elena reached her car, her phone buzzed one final time. An email notification from Daniel Huang, sent automatically, timestamp for exactly this moment. The subject line read, "From your father, to be opened after your victory." Elena's hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a video file. She pressed play. Her father's face appeared on the screen, recorded sometime before his death, sitting in his study, looking directly at the camera. "Elena?" His voice was warm, strong, full of love. "If you're watching this, it means you fought back. It means you didn't let someone break you. It means you're still the strong, brilliant daughter I raised." Tears streamed down Elena's face. "I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. Whatever you went through, whatever pain brought you to this moment, I want you to know, you were never alone. I've been with you every step, and I always will be." He smiled, his eyes wet with tears. "Now go build the life you deserve. Go be the incredible mother I know you are. Go be happy." The video ended. Elena stood frozen, clutching her phone, her baby against her heart, tears falling freely. Sophia hugged her from behind, crying too. "He really never left you," Sophia whispered. "No," Elena said, her voice breaking with love and grief and gratitude all at once. "He never did." She looked up at the sky one more time, whispering, "Thank you, Dad, for everything." And then with her daughter safe in her arms and her father's love surrounding her like armor, Elena Pierce drove away toward her new life, a life built not on revenge, but on resilience. And that is how a woman stripped of everything discovered she had more than enough, more than money, more than justice, more than revenge. She had herself, she had her daughter, and she had a father's love that reached across death itself to save her. I hope this story touched your heart the way creating it touched mine. This isn't just about one woman's fight, it's about every person who's been underestimated, abandoned, or betrayed at their weakest moment. If this story resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what lessons you learned from Elena's journey. Thank you for being here. See you in the next video.